We're going to move on to Joseph from Personally. Sorry, I'm sure there's a better way of saying it, but it sounded like a good way to say it at the time.
No, you're good, you're good.
Joseph, we're going to talk to us about re-engagement in 2026, how to design scale-winning retargeting campaigns. Go for it, Joseph.
Thank you. There are seats available for the people in the back. I'm excited to say this, but there are seats, yeah. Nice to meet everyone. I'm Joseph from Personally. We're a DSP focused on mobile, doing both UA and retargeting for almost a decade now. I've been in tech for way too long, but it's been fun. I lead our machine learning teams, focusing on driving incremental growth, both in UA and retargeting. What I'm going to talk to you about today is why retargeting is so important, how you can make it work. I'll try to remove some of the misconceptions you might have, and hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A. Retargeting has become very significant over the past few years. Almost 30% of UA, of all the marketing spent on apps is now retargeting. There are a bunch of reasons for that. AppsFlyer, our friends who just got off stage, reported this pretty recently. What drove it is a bunch of things. First of all, people are with even shorter attention spans. It's not enough that we have, TikTok ruining our lives. Now we have all the dramas, the short dramas and stuff like that. People jump around between different types of content. Your competition for their screen time is just becoming harder every day. You probably all know this. If you're here in the conference, you're looking for better UA solutions that are cheaper. Those basically don't exist anymore. UA is becoming increasingly expensive as time goes by. Most of the performance teams we work with already have retargeting in mind. They start off with it. They build it into their BI and all their evaluations because measurement can be tougher. So this increased all the spend we have there from like the bigger teams across the industry. And yeah, competitors are there. The biggest clients we have work with 5 or 6 different DSPs to do the retargeting campaigns, and they scale pretty aggressively. I'll explain how that works across a lot of DSPs later. The last thing that drove a lot of the growth in the past year is probabilistic retargeting on iOS. That's something that's been more or less figured out at this point. It's by matching IPs to your actual users, the same way you would do it for UA. If you've been doing UA on iOS for a long time, you know that to some degree, your UA campaigns are retargeting as well. Because you can't control who you're targeting. And if you're using the DSPs or the platform's capabilities to target, you would naturally land on your audiences. So this solution that allows you to specifically run retargeting lets you actually measure things correctly. That's something that scaled like 600% across the industry and for us as a DSP as well in the past year. Let's talk about how measurement looks like here, because again, a lot of the teams, when they go into this, are scared of like how measurement looks like. Because the core concept of retargeting is scary, because you're basically paying for something you could have gotten organically. You're reactivating users that are valuable. 90% of retargeting activities is not about converting users that are non-payers to become payers. It's about taking inactive payers and targeting them. So there are 3 key factors that we did some jokes with here. First one being the inactivity window. This is basically how long it takes you to consider a user to be dormant and eligible for retargeting. I'll show you in a bit like how that looks like across different genres, but it's basically a reflection of your LTV curve. If a user needs to recoup within 90 days and he dropped off at 30, you're not going to recoup. Maybe it's the right time to try and do something. If your recoup is shorter, God forbid if you're still in hyper casual, don't do retargeting and change your business. But the inactive window reflects that. The re-engagement window is how long you attribute the performance that's derived from the retargeting campaigns to the retargeting campaigns and not to the original UA campaign that brought you the user. This is the trickier part the MMPs attribute to both channels by default, the UA one and the retargeting one. There are parameters on the MMPs that allow you to look at it differently. This is something I would understand with your BI team and figure it out. And yeah, reattribution is basically bringing someone back in. One other thing we're seeing recently, there's more testing around it for the user's first attribution, because when you start retargeting, there's multiple attributions for the same user. You shouldn't re-engage too soon. You should let your CRM do the work, all the things that are happening inside the game, to actually drive the user towards action, towards paying. So that's something to consider. We're seeing more and more testing trying to do it sooner. Yeah. This is a distribution of the inactivity days we're seeing across the board. So to remind you, this is like, when do you define a user as dormant? We've been seeing a shift towards shorter windows. Ones that were at 7 are moving towards 4, or that were at 28 are moving towards 14. But as I said before, this kind of captures the way your game behaves. If your LTV curve is shallow, then you would see a longer inactivity window. This shift towards shorter ones is just because of more increased competition inside retargeting as well. To remind you what a DSP does, just because you should understand how we're actually able to do this, we participate in auctions to show the ads, everything that's outside of the closed gardens. And we have something like 300 milliseconds is optimistic, a lot of them is like 100, where the supply side gives us time to actually figure out if you want to target the user. When it comes to retargeting, we have identifiers of users, so we can say, okay, this is from that audience, this is from this audience. At that point, we also enrich it with data that we have about the user in general, as well as data specific for the advertiser. One thing that we did in the last 2 years was to actually introduce the in-app features, the in-app events as features inside our models. So our models can detect these patterns of payments and churn. So we have this transformer model that figures out if the user paid 7 days ago, stopped being active 6 days ago, it makes sense to target them now. All of this data enrichment happens in 1 millisecond, because tech is cool, and then we have a lot more time to actually run the machine learning models that give us the probabilities of user coming back, how much LTV they're gonna generate. And all of this happens 4 million times a second. So it's basically burning hard drives for us. Another thing that's tougher is actually predicting the price of the auction. Users have a value assigned to them by the nature of supply and demand. So we need to make sure we're not overpaying. Everything is a first price auction now, so we need to predict the second price to not overpay. Now, what I was saying earlier, this concept of am I attributing things I shouldn't to my retargeting campaign is called cannibalization, because they're basically eating into your revenue that you're getting through UA. It's a scary name. So that's why I think a lot of people are staying away from retargeting to some degree. Here's me trying to tell you why it's a myth. So first of all, very biased. Obviously, I want you guys to do retargeting with a lot of DSPs so we can compete with them. So take it with a grain of salt, but my job is to convince you anyway. First off, if you know anything about the supply path in programmatic, I wouldn't trust you because it's basically impossible to understand. If you do monetization, you know you have one SDK that does the mediation across all the other SDKs that go to 10 different auctions, and somehow magically you should get the highest CPM out of this. In reality, there are deals in between. It's very intricate. In some cases, the highest bidder won't win because it's blocked somewhere in this path. So a lot of the requests that we get, these 4 million per second, these auctions to show impressions are inflated. They're multiplied. But there's a lot of supply to go around still. So that's my key takeaway here is that there's a lot of supply. Even if we're talking about a small group of payers that you want to retarget, there's probably hundreds of thousands or millions of opportunities every week to reach them. The second thing is about internal auctions. Before you go to the actual auction, where all the different DSPs are competing for the same impression, you have an auction inside each DSP. I'll show you how that works in a slide later. The next one is about the free meals. Bon appetit, by the way. Valuable users are expensive. There's no place where you can get them for cheap. If you see that place, you should be suspicious. I'm saying this because the CPMs with identifiers on Android or on iOS, when the user consents, drive the prices incredibly high when we're talking about very valuable users. We're seeing CPMs that if you would have told me 5 years ago, I would punch you because they don't make sense. $1,500 CPMs for VIPs, some crazy averages I wouldn't think we're seeing before. So this happens because the supply of these users is limited and very competitive. So each opportunity you can get, you should try and latch onto it. About these internal auctions, let's imagine this scenario where there are only 2 DSPs in the world. If you're going to a DSP where you're the first social casino that they're doing retargeting for, you're not going to have that internal competition. You're basically going to get 100% of all bids on your relevant users. But as soon as the other DSP has several ones, you're basically going to get cut in half. You're sharing valuable users with a lot of different apps. As we said before, people are spending their time across games, across apps, across different content that they subscribe to. So when you're working even with 7 different DSPs, you're not going to reach the actual auction, in some cases, through none of them. So expanding your reach is a positive thing. And in reality, because all of these DSPs know the value of the user, you're not really increasing it by doing that. Moving on. To actually understand if you're driving value, you need to test. Incrementality is that. Are we actually having incremental contribution from the campaigns we're running? This is also something that sounds scary and complex to do. It's a buzzword that's thrown around. In reality, you can simplify it and measure it pretty effectively. You split your users to 2 groups, treatment and control. The control users are not exposed to ads. We see their in-app performance. The treatment users are exposed. We see their performance. We expect to see a lift. The thing you need to consider is the size of the groups. Both need to be statistical, but the treatment one needs to be bigger. We're usually seeing 80-20 splits or 70-30 splits, and the control needs to be at least 4,000 users, something like that. You need to factor in the real reach of the DSP. They won't necessarily be able to reach all of the users on both groups. This is why we do an AA testing, to make sure they can actually reach both groups at similar rates. You need to sanity check it in the same way. And you need to consider that when you're doing this, the users become more inactive over time. You don't refresh these lists, they're static. So the performance is going to deteriorate anyway. It's going to be slightly better than it is, slightly worse, sorry, than it is a normal activity. The nerdy stuff here is just some statistical tests to make sure the results are not random. These aren't things we made up. These are just normal statistical tests we apply here. This is a quick demo of like how results would look like. Basically, when you run a campaign, you split it, you have a duration, you control which type of ads you show, and you will see some sort of metric about the lift across different time, across different groups. What the demo shows here is something that we've been seeing a lot. The boost is driven a lot by which type of ads you use. If you're using banners for retargeting, you're probably lying to yourself because it's all view-through attribution and users are just coming back organically without really exposing them to an ad that's substantial. So we see much better incrementality when we're running interstitials. We basically run exclusively interstitials at this point. Deep linking is a short one, but it's very important. This is like the only technical thing you need to do from your side in order to make this work. Pretty straightforward. When you have the deep link working correct with the MMP, clicking it sends the user directly into the app. You all know funnels, less clicks, happier marketers, better conversion rates. This is huge because this is the impact on the IPM. So if you don't have it integrated in your apps, work with the MMP. It's not hard. Just need to make sure it works. The last bit, I have a couple more minutes, is more around like what to avoid, how to look at it critically. Because by the nature of retargeting, because we're already retargeting valuable users, it can look too good to be true. In some cases, it is. The things to look at is what we call imposter syndrome here. Is again, when the activity looks good, but it's basically completely organic. You're just labeling the users as ones that you returned, but it's all view through attribution or some engaged view or whatever. So I would really look critically at what type of attributions are driven. I would, in most cases, even limit the view through to not exist or be very short. You need to make sure that the inactivity window is actually enforced. In some cases, we heard from our partners that there were cases where users that were still active being targeted, again, inflating the ROIs. So you just need to make sure that that's enforced well. The rest is still coming back to the same point. If you're seeing attributions that tell you the user is not really engaging with the ads, but you're still getting the attribution, like view through, or you're saying that most of the inventory being bought is banners, I'm pretty sure an incrementality test would fail. So we encourage you to do both. Focus on non-banners, full screen interstitials, and do this incrementality testing. And to leave you with some tips, when you're talking to a DSP and you're trying to consider if you want to use them for retargeting, make sure they have enough reach. A lot of demand-side platforms, they need to settle on the inventory they're actually bidding on because it's expensive. They can't read all of the requests that they get to understand if it's a device ID they want to target. So they have some model that tries to determine it. They could be throttling like 50% of their traffic because it doesn't seem valuable. We have an infrastructure that allows us to look at everything because it's not on the cloud, because cloud costs are crazy. You can ask that. Again, performance here looks good basically from day one. This is why some channels would abuse this and take a higher margin. This is the transparency you need with your clients anyway. We use fixed margins. They're transparent in dashboards, but that's us. And lastly, you need to see that an incrementality test doesn't scare the channel that you're working with. If it does, that's a bad sign. And yeah, words to live by, because I'm obsessed with EdTech. But in reality, you need to look at like how much incremental value is being added. You need to think about, is this activity actually contributing on top of the UA? Is it supporting the UA in the right way? And don't get blinded by the fact that ROI is very high. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.